Long before we became a fire department, Lansing was incorporated in 1893. Lansing had a very big fire long before we became a fire department. Well, the fire was a large brush fire because the area was mainly brush and wood at that time. Everybody living in the area and out of the area came to help put the fire out. Bringing all kinds of devices and steam engines and tractors. And it took them 10 days, but they finally got it before it reached any serious structures. Lansing was a population of 2,000, and there was no other department anywhere near us at this time. Lansing was the very first. Mr. Winterhoff wanted a fire department because there was no fire protection at all. Certain buildings in town that had firefighting supplies, like buckets of water, buckets of sand, shovels, anything that we could use or they could use to fight a fire if we had a fire. But that was it. And you got to remember that we had no official fire department at the time. July 13th, 1922 is when we were born. Our first fire truck was a 1922 Commerce, and it had hose on it, and it did have the ability to carry some water. Our very first new piece of equipment was a 1945 American La France. And that was housed in the only firehouse we had, which was in downtown Lansing, at Lake and Henry. And that American La France pumper had all the latest equipment on it. In the mid-50s, the Fire Prevention Bureau was created, and it was headed by Ralph Schauer and two other men. It was the first of its kind, and it was huge. It was very active. It did yearly inspections in every single business in town, at least twice a year. It did churches, it did schools, it had put on performances at school. During Fire Prevention Week, our biggest show was always on Friday. These shows were huge. They started at Coolidge School, and they got so big that we needed more room, so we moved to Station 2. These programs played a huge part in our public relations. In the 70s and 80s, we hired our first full-time men. Ralph Schauer was our first paid fire chief, and that was the beginning of our paid department. In 1970, we hired 8 new full-time firefighters. We went from none, having no paid firefighters, to 8 in just 1 year. In 1970, the greatest train wreck ever happened in Chicago. There was a commuter train that was unloading, and there was a second train coming in that didn't even stop. Hundreds were injured or killed in that accident, and it took most of a day to get them all out of there. Lansing was the only other town that had a set of Jaws of Life. Chicago had a set, we had a set. And we sent our rescue unit out with that piece of equipment on it with 3 firefighters who were very familiar with that tool. Used it to get people out. It didn't take long for word to get out about this tool. And now almost every department across the nation's got one of these tools. The Jaws of Life is the greatest tool that's ever come around in my lifetime. Station 3 was built on the south end of town because of the railroad tracks on Burnham Avenue, and that gave us more assurance that our men could get to a call on either side of the railroad track. When the Landing Corporation came in, they made Lansing an offer that if we would give them the land to build a mall, they would buy us a state-of-the-art fire station, and they did. And that's where Station 4 sits today. Somewhere along the way, 2 females joined our department. One of these ladies was a lieutenant paramedic, top-notch, all the way, professional. The other was an engineer paramedic, and she was top-notch also. There's an old adage in the fire service that the address belongs to the truck because the truck has to make entry in a hurry to do rescue and save lives.
As a firefighter, it's hard, when you have to come to people when they're really in a tough spot. The village is really focused on getting us a lot of equipment that's kind of up to date and new. So, we're moving forward and we're excited. It's been really nice to kind of start moving in a good direction. Our growth is really, due to the fact of just great backing by our residents, by the mayor, by the village board. It's just a history of that. That's where we're at today because of those that came before us.
Lansing is good, was good, and right now I wouldn't have any other department. Their work ethic, the job they do. I think somewhere we've talked about the number of calls this department makes and the lives we save. Why wouldn't you be proud of that?